function and efficiency of my farmhouse kitchen tends to steadily decline the longer I neglect it. Today I want to take you along on a day of homemaking as I declutter, revamp, and rethink how this space functions. We're going to do some decorating and cooking as well. I want to say thank you to KiwiCo for sponsoring today's video. More on them in a bit. I have big plans for getting into this organization project this afternoon. So this morning there's some kitchen work that must first be done. Of course, we need to have lunch, and then a lot of times when I'm prepping lunch, I also like to prep dinner so that I can sort of put that task aside for the day. So we're going to be doing some of that. First, I had some bread sitting in the refrigerator, a couple of loaves. I already baked one, and now I'm getting the second one scored and into my Dutch oven so that we can have that later today. We keep sourdough bread going all the time, whether I have a plan to use it for anything or not. We'll always find a use. We don't have to be making sandwiches. It's great for toast, croutons, breadcrumbs. Also on the stove, I had some pear sauce. We've been coming across a lot of pears and apples, even though our trees aren't quite producing yet. Other people's are, and so somebody will give us some here and there, and then I'm just trying to use it up as we go, so I don't have to can anything. Now, one thing that we need to can or preserve in some way is peppers. We've been getting so many. So we've been cutting up peppers and freeze drying them, and then also making as many fresh as possible. We also have some green beans from the garden that we are trimming and cutting. I'm gonna serve those alongside lunch today. And then I am cutting the peppers in half, drizzling them with olive oil and salt, and then baking them in the oven. I'm gonna make kind of like a stuffed pepper casserole, so I don't have to actually stuff the peppers. This is something I've been doing a lot lately. It's really good, but very, very, very spicy. Some of our kids can handle it. Some of them totally cannot. So for a real easy lunch today, I had thawed out chicken. So we're having chicken, green beans, and bread. Makes it really simple. I have those peppers roasted and ready to go for a quick meal this evening. So that prep is done. Now that it's afternoon and the toddler is down for a nap, the big kids are outside, I'm going to address my big kitchen issue that I have been putting off for so long. I think with people who have organized houses that tend to stay tidy really easily, or even if it's not easy, just regularly very tidy, we tend to think that they have cleaned it really well once and for all, and that they always keep it that way. Not that I'm trying to come across here as some tidy person, because clearly I let things get away from me. So maybe this is how some people operate. But for me personally, I have to revisit each and every space in my home very regularly to assess the efficiency, to see if there's anything that's been put in there that no longer serves us, or even like in the case of the drawer I just opened with a whole bunch of random lids, the glass containers that those lids went to have at some point broken. And each time one of those broke, I never thought to take the lid and get rid of it. That's not something that crossed my mind. And now as I'm opening the drawer, I'm thinking, why have I been shuffling things around to accommodate lids that no longer have the vessels that go with them? So these are just little things that happen all the time. Not only today though, am I concerned with some efficiency things, I also am just sick of how it looks in here. I think that it's become really cluttered. I've added things over time without really editing things out. It feels kind of dirty and dingy, and that's something that I want to address. I actually, because I'm on camera so often, I noticed it because I was having a hard time getting pretty shots. I would put the camera at this spot in the kitchen and feel like there was no way that I could capture something beautiful, which is something that I love doing in my videos. I really try to not only share my real life and things I'm doing for my family, but I want it to be in a beautiful way. It's not always that way, but it was lacking and I wanted to address it. I want to take a quick pause from my work to tell you about something that my kids absolutely love, and that is KiwiCo. As the daylight is getting shorter each day and the days getting colder, I really like whenever we have something to look forward to, something that isn't TV. My kids spend so much of their lives outside, and I'm really starting to think about how these next few months they might be spending a little bit more time inside, and I love having something that is both educational and keeps them busy. KiwiCo is the perfect thing for that. Something that I love about KiwiCo is that that my kids can work on them together. So oftentimes, instead of getting all of theirs out at one time, we will do one at a time so that we can absorb all of the educational goodness that comes from it. Each KiwiCo crate has materials that go along with the activity so that the kids have the opportunity to not only have some fun while completing it, but also to dig a little bit deeper and understand the physics behind it, the math behind it. I love that with KiwiCo, everything comes in the box, so you don't have to worry about heading to the store to pick up one little thing. They can complete it start to finish with what is in there. Though we do it together because I believe every kid can get a little something from it. They do have 9 different lines for different ages. So the Panda Crate, which is delivered every other month, is great for early childhood development. We had tons of fun with these for our 2 youngest. My oldest really loves the Tinker Crate and the Eureka Crate. There's also a Maker Crate that's great for adults ages 0 all the way up to 104 plus can get a Kiwi Crate that is perfect for them to enjoy. KiwiCo is offering Farmhouse on Boone viewers 50% off your first month with my link, kiwico.com/farmhouseyt. You can use the coupon code Farmhouse. It'll also be linked in the description box below. I noticed that when I procrastinate on decorating something or redoing it, it isn't because of the physical effort or that it's actually that hard or I can't find the time. It's because I'm usually overwhelmed with all of the options. So I start getting all of these ideas like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to maybe put some art there? Or maybe I should move around my whole spice cabinet. I sure would like to have more space on my countertop, but where will I put the mill? Maybe I need to swap the plates out. But then I think, well, what art? There's a lot of options out there. I could pick anything. Which plates? You could start to get so paralyzed by options. There's that fear of missing out, that fear of picking the wrong thing. So this is my permission to you to have fun with your home. It doesn't have to be so serious or permanent. It also doesn't have to be expensive. You can simply rearrange or move items around that you already have. There's really nothing that I purchased new for this except for a few thrift shop items. So for example, right now, I'm doing some art swapping around. I bought some digital files on Etsy. They were very inexpensive that I had my local print shop print. So we're talking like $10 investment for that. And then I got some frames at a thrift shop for $1 a piece. Now this wooden one, I don't necessarily think that I love it, but it gets the job done. It gets art in the place where I was thinking about art. And now I can ponder on it. I can say, oh, well, maybe a longer piece would be nice there. So I can keep my eye out at a thrift shop for a longer frame, or I'd rather have maybe a more antique looking frame or something gold. Now that I have art in that place, it gets my mind moving in the direction of the idea that I originally had been thinking about. Even if it's not the absolute perfect decision, it's making a few decisions that gives you that momentum to actually get started on something. This is something I've learned over and over again in my house, that I want to move forward on something, but I'm afraid of wasting time, wasting money, effort. Sometimes you just need to take something small and start. So another example of this is in my parents' home. We were brainstorming, my sister and I, who love decor and design, about a whole new layout, like a very different layout in their very open concept home. My mom loves the idea, but she's also a little bit overwhelmed on how to even begin. So yesterday we were at my parents' house and we were chatting, and the next step is just to remove the things that we know we don't want in there. Just get rid of them. And then take the pieces she already has and rearrange. So we'll put the table in the new spot we were thinking. Now, it's not the best table, and we want like a really long, different kind of table, a large table. But by putting the table in the spot where we were thinking for the table, and the couch in the place that we were thinking for the couch, even though it's not the couch that we want ultimately in there or the table we want ultimately in there, it just gives you a little bit of momentum, helps you to see what's possible, and just moves you in the right direction without making any permanent or costly decisions. I know it's cliche at this point because we hear it all the time, but getting started on something is the hardest part. building a little bit of momentum from nothing is the hardest thing with everything. And I've seen that when it comes to starting a blog, starting my YouTube channel, and even completely reorganizing my kitchen. There's always that moment where you have to take the first step. And then once you're going, I usually don't want to stop. So I'm getting this all done in an afternoon. It is taking longer than just Theodore's nap time. So I'm calling in the troops to help assist on all of this, because once I have this underway, I first of all have the whole kitchen tore apart. So even if I wanted to stop, it wouldn't really be wise. But I don't want to stop. I want to bring some function back into this. It's amazing how little time something like that actually takes once you get started on it. We as homemakers do tend to get sick of the way things are arranged in our home, even when they function fine. Changing up the scenery is something that I like to do all the time. I get sick of things, and I see this with other people too. They change something in their home that I think that looked really great before, but it's because they've seen it so many times. And I think that's what happens in my own home. So for right now, I want a little bit more counter space. And so I'm finding a way to put my mill in a different spot. When we purchased this cabinet, this antique cabinet, it had a little hole in the back because people had used it for an entertainment cabinet. So that's a good place for the cord to go. I don't know why I never thought of it before, but it really took me clearing that cabinet out to see a new use for it. I didn't have that idea going into today, but after seeing it clear, it became very obvious that, I could use this spot for appliances. I could put a little multi-cord surge protector type of thing behind there, and I could even put like our espresso machine in there. I'm not going to do that just yet, but it got my wheels turning. And that happens a lot. Whenever you see a space over and over again, you forget different advantages, different spaces that you actually have at your disposal that you're just ignoring because it's always been the place where I put XYZ. That's why it's so great to revisit these things and to think through each thing critically. Like, is it really still serving me well to store cast iron on the stovetop, or am I moving it around more and more because I need to use all 4 burners for my larger family? Am I grabbing sugar and oats from the shelves above the stove, or instead reaching for higher quantities, larger bags that I can actually stick my cup measurers into out of the nearby pantry? These are questions I had to ask myself because I found that I kept doing these things over and over again and not considering the way that I could change the kitchen just slightly to serve me better. When you take some time to go back through everything with a critical eye, you may not even realize what you could have in your space. Sometimes I also just get sick of seeing it look the same way for a long time. I spend so much time in here, I just need to switch it all up. I let my spices get away from me. I buy new spices all the time, and I'll just throw the little bags into a basket and not put them in the proper jars. Before you know it, though, it becomes so out of hand that I don't even use the spices that I have. I will have something that would be delicious, but I don't even know I have it. I know that this is homemaking 101, but keeping these spaces tidy really adds so much value. It takes things that were just going to go to waste and be disposed, helps you see that you have them, think through some recipes. After seeing some of the seasonings I had, I thought of a few things that, I could make. I remember buying this seasoning to make this certain thing. And now it's on the mental menu plan to actually incorporate and use it. A lot of these decorating and organizing days involve trying things out and seeing if they're going to work, maybe switching it up or maybe going back to how I had it before. Thought maybe I'd want a larger utensil container, but then I realized that it took up too much counter space. And the reason I moved the mill is I was trying to have more counter space and reinvent and reimagine how the cabinet's used. I also use the top of the cabinet for storage. I keep supplements, medicines. I have a little pulse ox thing for if ever a kid has a cough in the middle of the night and you get really scared, put that on their finger and, you can decide whether or not it's actually scary. That has saved me from going to the ER. Just random medical and supplement type things. It's a good place to keep it because we don't use it much. And then I address the art situation. So I took a painting from the living room and moved it under the shelf. Again, this isn't something that I thought of before this day. It was just something on the fly after getting those spices off the top part of the stove. I saw an opportunity to add more art. I don't know what I'm going to replace in the living room. That painting for, but I know that I need something here. Even if I get something different for here and put that back in the living room, this spot definitely needs art. And that did not become apparent until I cleared this whole space. So now I have a more minimal, clean surface to work with. I can clean the top of my stove more easily. And then I put the other print that I got from the local print shop and from Etsy in my thrift shop frame to cover up that spot in the beadboard that we had to leave open during the renovation. So that's a whole story in itself. If you want to go back and catch up on our Victorian farmhouse kitchen renovation playlist, I have the entire thing from 3-4 years ago. Oh my word. I think it's 4 years ago where we started the whole process. We worked on the office, the dining room, the pantry, the kitchen, all very separately. And it's all there in that playlist. And then even how I've redecorated it over the years. So that's a whole story in itself. If you are on a kitchen renovation journey of an old farmhouse or even a newer home, you can follow along and see how that whole process played out. Since I prepped my roasted peppers earlier, I'm now just adding on some ground beef with onions and salsa over top those, some cheese on top for a really easy dinner. Then in the pantry, I wanted to change the space up again. I know I did this not that long ago. I took the art that was in there and moved it over to the dining room side. I really liked that change, but I craved the minimal feeling that was in the pantry before. So I added new art where the peaches were, or the pears, I'm not really sure what exactly those are, and then moved those into the pantry to give it that same feel. I also had this matchbox holder because our stove is vintage and it uses a match to light the oven. I need them nearby. For so long, I just sat it right on top of the back of the stove. And now Luke actually mounted it for me so I can have an entire box of matches ready and waiting to light the oven. I picked up this little countertop lamp at a thrift shop for $3. I love having a lamp there. All last year, I put up one of my lamps with the pleated lampshades I made last winter. But if something splashes on it, it's obviously not washable because it's fabric. This one is glass. So I liked it for the kitchen because I can clearly just polish it and not worry about anything flying on it, which happens in the kitchen. These changes I made today might seem small, might seem insignificant, but the way that the kitchen feels and functions now that we've decluttered some plates that I no longer use that I was kind of hoarding for blog photography, but then realizing I never actually reached for them. Way too many coffee mugs that we definitely did not use. Decluttering lids so that we could store cast iron in the lower drawer of the oven instead of having to move them off if I'm going to use a different skillet or a cast iron Dutch oven or a soup pot. Cutting boards now put away for a more minimal look and feel. Again, this might not look that different to you, or you might have liked it better before, but I was just craving something clean and fresh and different. I need to still repaint where I took down the command hooks in the pantry. Those took paint with them, so I need to touch that up, touch up the beadboard above where the other art is. But little things added here and there. I got a new light fixture off Etsy in the pantry. I found a rooster painting at a homeschool market. A homeschooler painted it. I thought it was so cute. I still have my dried flowers going. The chickens are still laying colorful eggs, even though that's probably about to stop. But this kitchen feels fresh and beautiful and full of life. And when some of these flowers die, the marigolds are done, the chickens are done laying eggs, it'll be time to bring in that winter greenery. And I'm feeling ready for it. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.